everyone. This is So thank you everyone that has joined us for today's presentation. Those of you that are still logging in, today's Brynka Beacon is going to address how to best present your projects to person. Brynka Beacon is a monthly webinar allowing you to participate and learn. At any point, if you have questions, presentation, if you're having questions from next, we're going to introduce who we have on the Brynka Beacon today. From the Brynka side, we have myself, Jennifer Young, Director of Sales. I'm going to be your host today. And then we also have Joe Martinez, our Vice President online. We're also very happy to welcome our guest speaker today, which is Mitzi Bryan. And she has been employed by Pratt Institute. Daily operations of the purchasing, copy center, mail center, and telecommunications. Has positions.
Hey, Jen, it sounds like you're having some audio problems. You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry about that. Hello? Okay. This is better here. But for management from
Jen, yeah, you're still having issues.
okay. Let me get here. So as we move location here, Mitzi. Mitzi, thank you for joining us today. Are you there?
Okay, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you before.
Oh, so sorry.
Yes, because I was
technical difficulties.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you, so I didn't. What did you say? I didn't hear you.
We just wanted to thank you for coming today and let all of our listeners know where you're from. So I'll just repeat that part so our listeners know that you are employed by Pratt Institute, a private college, since 2007. And was hired as the Assistant Director of Purchasing in the Administrative Support Services Department. And you're responsible for the management of staff and the daily operations of purchasing, the copy center, mail center, and the telecommunications department. Mitzi was also named Director of Purchasing on May 2nd, 2015, and has the additional role as the Institute's e-procurement trainer. So before this position, she worked for a private bi-state agency where she planned activities regarding the accurate application of company policy and procedures in the areas of finance, human resources, and administration. Mitzi holds a bachelor's degree in business management from the Metropolitan College of New York and is a certified professional purchasing manager. So welcome, Mitzi. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So we wanted to start off with a poll. Joe, do you have the first poll for us? We wanted to ask our listeners today.
Absolutely. So polls up on the screen. And the question is, have you ever had a project that you were passionate about that didn't get implemented? So if everyone could
Great
select
question.
one of the answers, yes or no?
And then as soon as those polls are all in, Joe's going to let us know what our results are.
Okay.
Okay, great. So the results of the poll are yes, 60%, and no, 40%.
Okay, great. So it sounds like we have some experienced managers online that have found processes that work for them. And we also have quite a few, the majority of listeners that are looking for ways to improve presenting things to their purchasing department. So we'll start off with our interview with Mitzi here. As a director of purchasing for a large university, what information is most helpful to you when someone initially approaches you with a new idea that needs a financial approval from your department?
Okay. It's strongly encouraged to use the suppliers that are designated as Pratt suppliers. We have partnered with certain suppliers in order to maximize discounts and the purchasing power of the Institute. Whenever possible, staff requesting goods and services should attempt to fill requests for these goods and services by utilizing our supplier that's already designated in our database. Before proceeding with any procurement of any goods and services, faculty and staff should first consult with purchasing to ensure that the department's needs cannot be satisfied from within the extensive list of pre-approved vendors. And then many situations also require joint determination by purchasing and the user departments in order to select the proper supplier. In any situation, supplier selection will be based on a determination of the best value for the Institute. We have, various factors used in evaluating that include maybe price or previous record of performance and service, the ability of the supplier to render satisfactory service, availability of supplier representatives, quality and conformance to specifications, and the list goes on. The department must also be able to justify the need for the product or service and prove why and how this new purchase will benefit the Institute. They also must have the funds available to cover the purchase, and suppliers typically three. We typically try to quote out to 3 suppliers are chosen on a bid or on a product or service, according to the threshold set by your company or university.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then, Mitzi, how do you like to see information presented?
They arise from requisitions. For example, when the employee requires a product, all requests should be submitted via purchase requisition. We do via either paper or via electronic forms, and they're forwarded by the appropriate personnel, certifying the approval of the request and the availability of funds prior to the submission to purchasing for order processing. It should contain as much detail as necessary to ensure the request is understood by both purchasing and the supplier. Requisitions that do not contain these details or comply with purchasing policies are returned back to the initiator for correction. The requisitions must include the requisitioner's name, extension, the date of request, complete budget number, delivery location, quantity, special instructions, detailed item description, department head or authorized signature. Price and suggested supplier should also be indicated. If not indicated, a supplier will be chosen by purchasing. Suppliers should first be researched through the vendor directory. If a preferred supplier cannot meet the department's needs, one will be selected through various sourcing methods or recommendations, depending on the time constraint of the department.
Okay, great. So it sounds like a very detailed-oriented person might have an advantage when working to get something approved by purchasing and filling out all of that detailed information. That's a great point.
Yes, those are usually fast tracked through.
Okay, great. So can you walk us through the process and the chain of command that a new project needs to go through? We could set up a hypothetical scenario. Say there is a mail services manager that has an idea that they believe would benefit the school. So what would be the first step?
Well, the first step is to present the need to the supervisor. You must be able to justify the need for the product or the service and prove why and how this purchase will benefit the institute. Must have the funds available to cover the purchase. Must have research and or have documentation from at least 3 sources that provide a similar product or service. This is used for review of company background, product specs for infrastructure and IT compliance, and financial background research. If approved, a purchase requisition form for the chosen supplier must then go through the review and department approval process again, which will require review, approval, and a signature from the department head prior to obtaining and requesting goods and services. And in alignment with purchasing best practices, no employee should purchase goods or services without first obtaining approval by the manager or department head, and they should not approve their own orders. All orders are required to be submitted to purchasing for review, approval, and processing with limited exceptions. Department heads and supervisors bear the full responsibility for all expenditures charged to their individual departments, and accordingly, their approval must be documented on all orders before processing and before payment can be made.
Okay, great. So that's great information. It's not really advisable to run ahead with the solution then without really getting purchasing involved pretty much from the beginning, it sounds like.
Yes, that's true. We had an incident where a department did do that, and they went on their own to purchase a product, and they never received the product. They spent about $5,000 or more, and then when they tried to reach out to the company, the website was disabled and the phone numbers disconnected. So these things happen. You have to be very careful.
Wow, yeah, that's a great lesson we all could really learn from. So what type of projects would you say get the most attention for a university?
Well, of course, universities, when you think of universities, you think of students. So the type of projects that gets the most attention are those that benefit the students, which may include new dorm furniture, lab equipment, personal computers. I know here we give the students a lot, laptops, upgrading the cafeteria. It could be any new technology, etc., that could be implemented to automate and change current processes to a more efficient, quicker process. Especially projects that have an ongoing financial return.
Okay, great. So really ones that benefit the students and have the financial return would sound like they make it to the top of the list.
Yes.
So what would help managers to get their projects noticed?
To show proof of how a project can benefit the institute long-term and for long-term use and financial savings.
Okay, great. And what are some things managers should avoid when trying to get projects approved?
They should avoid jumping the gun, meaning, making deals with suppliers prior to obtaining the required approvals. Like what I mentioned earlier, what happened to that department when they lost out on the $5,000.
Right.
Most of them, not knowingly enter into purchase commitments, which could result in, conflict of interest. So, employees engaged in purchasing function are expected to be free of interest or relationships that are actually or potentially detrimental to the institute's ability to obtain the best pricing and quality of goods and services. So we encourage employees not to engage or participate in any transaction involving the institute in which they or a family member have significant undisclosed financial interests.
Okay, that's a good tip too. So what are some expectations of vendors that you work with? Vendors/suppliers are expected to conduct themselves in an ethical and professional manner when doing business with the Institute. They should conduct negotiations with staff specifically authorized by the Institute, because a lot of suppliers like to go through the back door, and we discourage that.
They should negotiate ethically without attempts to influence through offers of personal gifts or entertainment. They should make available through purchasing or other designated institute representatives all available technical engineering systems, procedures, services, and ideas that might improve our present or future use of the supplier's products and services. Suppliers should advise purchasing or other authorized personnel of any new products as soon as such information is available. They should also inform purchasing or, again, other authorized personnel of changes in economics or other conditions that might affect purchasing or operating decisions.
Okay, great. And Mitzi, what are your favorite projects to work on getting approvals for?
My favorite are those submitted by departments that have all the information required to process the order without having to go back and forth requesting information. Time is precious, as we have a small staff here at Pratt, and that has to provide a service for the entire institute. So anytime we receive orders, etc., that has everything needed to process the order, those get first dibs.
Okay, great.
Mm.
And let's ask our audience now at this point if they have any questions for Mitzi. If there's anything you've ever wanted to ask somebody that works within a purchasing department, now is your time to ask those questions, and we can get them answered for you. And I'll turn it over to Joe to see if we have any questions coming in there in the chat box, which is where you can type your questions for Mitzi.
Hi, Jen, it's Joe. Currently, there's no questions right now. But again, if anyone has any questions, they can present those in the questions section of the webinar.
I'll just kind of comment on my takeaways from today, really. Even as a supplier or a vendor that works with a lot of college and campuses nationwide, really, I don't know if there's any other vendors or suppliers online today, but really this helps give us insight too into how we can help our clients, providing them with as much detailed information as possible up front, getting involved and perhaps even talking to, demonstrating to, or supplying information to the purchasing departments as well, not just the managers. So that was really insightful and helpful, I'm sure, to many others on the call as well today. So any other questions for Mitzi?
Yes, we have one here. Do you require a PO for all supplies, products, orders, or is there a dollar limit?
We require, for all orders, $500 and under. If it's an emergency purchase, they can use their individual issued procurement cards. But other than that, we require POs. Did that answer your question, or do you need more information?
Oh, that answered the question. Thank you.
Okay.
Mitzi, I was thinking of a question. When managers are coming to procurement with projects, what kind of time frame can they look at turning projects around? For example, should they be cognizant of your fiscal year, or are there other things that they should be keeping in mind as they're presenting projects to purchasing?
Yeah. Most importantly, what you just said, they definitely should keep in mind the fiscal year end, because there's certain, accounting rules set in place. For example, our fiscal year ends on June 30th. So we also have a deadline 2 months prior to that, just to inform people, to inform staff that the deadline is approaching and you need to, submit all your orders, because if your orders are submitted after the deadline, there's no promise that the orders that you place will be charged to the current fiscal year. If any orders received after the end of the fiscal year, it'll be charged to the next fiscal year. And of course, when you've already, done your budget, forecasting, and you may not have included that cost in the next fiscal year. So it's important to pay attention to the end of the fiscal year. So I would suggest that if anybody, especially if you have a large project, to try to start it off as early as possible just to get everything through, so that way you don't have any of those worries.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Yeah.
And all of the campuses, their fiscal years typically run the same time to same time, correct?
I'm not sure, if it could vary. We don't do like the January to December calendar year. We do July through June. And I'm not sure about a lot of campuses, but I'm quite sure a lot do the July through June fiscal year.
Okay, great. Any other questions, Joe?
No more questions.
Okay, great. Well, Mitzi, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was really helpful and insightful to managers, not just in mail centers, but really a manager in any department could benefit from the information in today's webinar, as well as vendors and suppliers to know a better way to present information in order to help the managers present their projects to purchasing in a detailed and complete manner. And make hopefully everybody's jobs a little easier, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much. We want all of our listeners to know about our next Brynka Beacon, which will be the last Thursday in March. That will again be at 2 o'clock. And that guest speaker is going to be Lee Holt, and she's going to be presenting a hot topic, and that's going to be mail center security and how to determine if you're prepared for threats and risks. So we hope all of our listeners will join us again next Thursday. And thanks again, Mitzi, for helping us out today.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.